I saw him and his ex-girlfriend downstairs at Alex Ruin's company, eating the food I had cooked. They were even sharing the same pair of chopsticks. It was at that moment I realized my husband, the man I had been married to for 3 years, still had feelings for his ex. Later, I sent him proof of their affair and requested a divorce. He admitted he was wrong. At the celebration party for Alex's company, he led me to make a toast together. When Alex approached a female colleague, she asked, "Mr. Ruin, this is your wife, correct?" Alex nodded, replying, "Yes." She then continued, "I heard the most popular game in our company was named after her. It's a pleasure to finally meet her." For reasons I couldn't understand, Alex's face suddenly darkened, and he pulled me away from the group. I quietly laughed to myself, wondering why he seemed so uncomfortable. I hadn't expected him to have done so much for me, and I truly appreciated him at that moment. He smiled at me, his gaze carrying an emotion I couldn't quite identify. I sat back down to chat with those seated next to me, hoping to learn more about the games his company had developed. But as I listened carefully, I realized my name wasn't mentioned at all. The name Sophia Nan caught my attention. It seemed vaguely familiar. I often saw it pop up in Alex's social circles. When Alex returned and sat beside me, I felt a little uneasy and cautiously asked, "Honey, who is Sophia?" Alex's face shifted slightly with discomfort before he replied, "I chose that name because I thought it suited the game." Without giving me a chance to press further, he abruptly changed the topic. I noticed the tension in his expression. Sophia clearly wasn't as simple as he had described her. That evening, when we returned home, despite being busy all day, Alex still took care of me, helping me wash and dry my hair, even massaging my feet. As I looked at this man who had shown me so much love, I wondered if I had been overthinking things. After all, in the 3 years we'd been married, he had shown me endless affection. Our friends viewed us as the perfect couple. Everyone believed I had married for love, and I believed it too. Reflecting on everything, I realized I might have been imagining problems where there were none. How could I doubt his love over a name? The next morning, I prepared breakfast as usual and sent him off to work. Later that morning, I took a pregnancy test and saw two clear lines. I was pregnant. I didn't have time to share the news as Alex had already rushed off to work. Since he seemed so busy, I went to the hospital alone. The doctor confirmed, "Miss Liu, congratulations. You're 5 weeks pregnant. Remember to schedule regular checkups." Leaving the hospital, I felt overwhelmed with happiness and immediately called Alex to tell him he was going to be a father. However, despite calling multiple times, he didn't answer. Thinking he was swamped with work, I decided to surprise him at his office instead. On my way there, I passed the cafe downstairs and noticed a familiar figure, Alex, sitting with a woman I didn't recognize. She smiled and said, "Alex, I didn't expect your wife's cooking to be this delicious. If you like, I can bring it for you every day from now on." I watched in disbelief as Alex fed her with the food I had prepared, even using the same chopsticks we shared at home. The sight made me feel disgusted. When I returned from the restroom, I caught Alex gazing at her with such tenderness, it felt like he wanted to turn the cafe into a private hotel room. He seemed to sense my stare and furrowed his brows before approaching me. Before he could speak, the woman spoke first. "You must be Alex's wife. Your cooking is amazing. I can't cook at all." When Alex and I were together before, he always did the cooking. Alex had once told me he didn't know how to cook, so hearing her words felt like a slap in the face. "We never cooked together," she added. I glanced at Alex, but he kept his head down, his face unusually stiff. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself," she continued with a smile. "I'm his classmate, Sophia." Alex avoided my gaze completely, and I stood there frozen as though time had stopped. I couldn't process what was happening. The love and trust I had placed in my marriage shattered in that moment, and tears rolled down my cheeks uncontrollably. Seeing my distress, Alex whispered something to Sophia, and she left with a satisfied smile. Now it was just the two of us, facing each other. Alex gently placed sunglasses on my face to hide my tear-streaked eyes and pulled me toward his office. I chose not to create a scene, so I stayed quiet despite my emotions. Once we were behind closed doors, I shook off his hand and confronted him, my eyes swollen and red. "Who exactly is Sophia?" I demanded. Alex kept his head lowered, avoiding my stare. His voice was cold as he finally admitted, "She's my first love." I felt my heart break. For the past 4 years, my husband had been emotionally devoted to his first love. All those affectionate posts he shared online were meant for her. Even his work projects had been centered around her. I was nothing more than a replacement. Do you love her? I asked, the silence in the room weighing heavily on me. Alex said nothing, yet his quietness was an answer in itself. Tears burned in my eyes, but I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. If you love her, why did you marry me? Isn't this ridiculous? If I hadn't caught you today, would you have continued living this double life? With those words, I removed my wedding ring. Emily Lou, calm down, he said, grabbing my hand as I was about to take the ring off. I was just having dinner with her. Don't overreact. I glared at him, my eyes burning with hurt and frustration. You were eating the food I cooked, using the chopsticks I prepared. And you said you want to eat my cooking every day. Does that mean you'll take my food to her too? Alex was momentarily speechless. I waited in silence for him to give an explanation. After a pause, he met my gaze with a cold expression and said, We're already married, and I won't divorce you. Please stop bringing it up. His words made it seem as if I were forcing him to stay in this marriage. He had been the one who proposed to me with flowers and a ring, yet now it felt like I was the one clinging to him. The way he spoke made it sound as if staying with me was a favor rather than a commitment. His statement made me realize that Sophia would always remain a presence in our relationship, as if we were a trio. His words left me stunned, making it difficult to accept the truth. I may not have eaten lunch, and a sudden wave of dizziness hit me, causing me to lose balance. My purse slipped from my hands, scattering my mirror, lipstick, and the pregnancy report across the floor. Alex bent down, picked up the report, and his face shifted from shock to delight. Emily, I'm going to be a dad. Is this real? He asked, voice filled with excitement. But instead of sharing his happiness, I felt bitter, regretting that I had chosen someone like him as the father of my child, convinced he wasn't deserving. Alex gently tried to help me up, but I resisted, pushing him away and shouting, Alex, let go of me! His expression tensed as he replied, Emily, think about yourself and the baby you're carrying. He stood up straight, staring down at me with growing frustration. I don't understand why you're acting like this. I've already told you I won't leave you. What else do you want from me? It was almost laughable how he accused me of being unreasonable when he was the one emotionally attached to another woman. Overcome with anger, I removed the wedding ring he had once placed on my finger and hurled it at his face. Alex, I want a divorce. Now! For the first time, a crack appeared in his usually composed expression, but he quickly masked it, regaining his calm. With a sarcastic smirk, his voice turned icy. Emily, think this through. How will you support yourself after leaving me? Will your money-hungry mother step in? And remember, you're pregnant with my child. What other man would want you now? I had always believed my husband genuinely cared for me, but his words made me realize he had been looking down on me all along. Before marriage, I had worked as a chef at a five-star hotel, earning an impressive annual salary of $200,000. But after we got married, he convinced me to quit my job and become a full-time housewife. At first I resisted, but he reassured me, promising to care for me forever and saying he didn't want me working in the public eye. Eventually, I gave in. Do men marry capable women only to strip them of their value later? I returned home with a heavy heart, feeling defeated. My father had died in a car accident when I was 3 years old, and my mother had raised me on her own through countless hardships. She was strict, hoping I would complete my education and find a suitable partner. I hadn't let her down. However, every time I visited my mother's house, she would urge me to go back to Alex. She didn't want to live in financial hardship, and often reminded me, it's normal for couples to argue. If you keep returning home like this, it will only upset Alex. You're pregnant now. Think of the baby. Do you want your child to grow up without a father just like you did? After listening to my mother's words, I retreated to the bedroom. That night, Alex came home, but I locked the door, refusing to see him. My mother knocked outside, urging me to come out. Stop being stubborn. He hasn't even cheated on you, she insisted. Women used to share their husbands with multiple wives and concubines in ancient times. They managed just fine, I thought bitterly. Does wearing a green hat come in different shades now? So, Mom, you don't understand. We've been married for years and he's always loved someone else. How can I keep living like this? She snapped back. I'll give you money if that's what you need, but who cares who he loves? I won't support your divorce. If you separate, how will I face our relatives and friends? I rarely spoke back to my mother, but her constant defense of Alex left me confused. Why did she always side with him instead of me? I just wanted to leave this marriage. My mother grew furious, stomping her feet in frustration. If you were really so perfect, why would your husband seek someone else? I have some money saved. You could use it for plastic surgery if you want. Her words cut deeply. Mom, you're going too far. Unable to continue the argument, I yanked open the bedroom door, slammed it shut, and refused to speak further. People say home should be a place of comfort, a sanctuary. So why did mine feel like anything but? It felt as though my mother's love was conditional, as if I was somehow responsible for Alex's betrayal. Hearing her say, "It's not my son-in-law's fault for being unfaithful, it's my daughter's failure to be perfect," was like a knife to the heart. How could she believe it was my fault when I was the victim? Then, she resorted to threats, saying she wouldn't eat unless I returned home with Alex. I had no choice but to give in. When I arrived at our house, I overheard voices from inside. "Alex, I heard Emily left for her mother's place after getting upset." Alex replied with indifference. "If she wants to make a fuss, let her." So what? I love Sophia, but I'm not going to divorce Emily. "If you don't love her, why stay married?" He answered coldly, "I want a son first. After she gives birth, then I'll consider the divorce." I felt utterly confused. If Alex didn't love me, why would he want me to bear his child? He explained that Sophia had told him she wanted to maintain her figure, had no desire for children, and was worried about the dangers of childbirth. Standing by the door, I listened in disbelief. So our entire marriage was just for the purpose of me having his child. The vows, the tears during our wedding ceremony, all of it had been nothing but an elaborate performance. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly, mocking his shamelessness. Years of being by his side had amounted to nothing but endless betrayal. I pushed open the door, and Alex and his friends immediately stood up, startled. When they noticed my presence, his friends exchanged awkward glances and left one after the other, their faces clearly showing contempt. "Emily, why are you back so suddenly?" "Did you overhear our conversation?" Alex asked, approaching me quickly. I responded coldly, "I'm not deaf." Trying to smooth things over, he spoke in a soothing voice. "Emily, don't worry. I won't treat you poorly. You're such a reasonable person. I'm sure you'll agree with my proposal, right? I promise you won't face any hardship. When you're 3 months pregnant, I'll give you 500,000. And if the baby is a boy, you'll receive another million." His true nature was finally exposed. I could no longer hold back and slapped him hard across the face. He wiped a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth with his thumb, smirking in disdain. "Emily, I'm offering you this amount out of consideration for the years we've been together. You should be grateful." I raised my hand to strike him again, but before I could, his phone rang. A soft, flirtatious voice drifted through the speaker. "Alex, I've had too much to drink and I miss you so much. Can you come keep me company?" Alex shifted his eyes to me, guilt flashing across his face, before he turned his back and answered, "Sophia, where are you?" After ending the call, he began changing his shoes, clearly preparing to leave. I let out a cold laugh. "Alex, what exactly is this? You called me back and now you're running off to see your first love? If you walk out that door, I swear I won't live anymore." He continued putting on his shoes, barely sparing me a glance. "Emily, stop being unreasonable. Don't do anything foolish," he said indifferently before leaving. Furious, I grabbed our wedding photo from the wall and smashed it onto the floor, the glass shattering with a loud crash. I had even hand-painted a cookbook specifically for him because of his sensitive stomach. Now, I tore the entire book to pieces, letting the pages scatter across the messy room. As I stared at the chaos around me, painful memories of my entanglement with Alex and Sophia flooded back. Determined, I searched for our marriage certificate in the study when my phone suddenly buzzed. The message was from Sophia. "Emily, with just a single call, Alex is willing to leave you for me. He has always loved me. If you're smart, you'll leave his home quietly." Her words pierced my heart. Before this, I had never harbored hatred for her. After all, when a man cheats, the blame should fall on him. But her calculated words, so full of mockery, made me realize something. A deceitful man and a scheming woman are truly a perfect match. I began doubting Alex's story. Had Sophia really wanted a child but felt unable, or had she simply refused? Only she could answer that question. Suppressing my pain, I forced a smile and replied to her message. "If Alex loves you so much, why hasn't he married you yet? Is it because being a mistress isn't something to be proud of?" Sophia shot back, "Don't flatter yourself, Emily. Just because he married you doesn't mean he loves you. The person he truly doesn't love is his wife." I realized arguing with someone like her was pointless. Wasn't she the one who enjoyed stealing another woman's husband? Fine. She could keep Alex. There were plenty of men in the world. I no longer wanted Alex, but he wouldn't take a cent of my money either. The clock struck 1 in the morning. The house was silent. I knew Alex wouldn't return that night. The next morning, I got out of bed and went to the hospital alone. As I lay on the hospital bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, tears streamed down my face. Only when the anesthesia was administered did I finally drift into a deep, numb sleep. After the procedure, a hollow ache lingered in my stomach, and I broke down in sobs. It was the first time I had ever felt such intense self-loathing. I despised myself for marrying a man I never truly understood. I was overwhelmed with guilt, feeling as though I had failed my child by not giving them a full life. But I knew I couldn't keep blaming myself for someone else's mistakes. After reflecting, I called my friend Cindy from the hospital bed. When she heard everything, she was furious, wanting to confront Alex at his office immediately. I pleaded with her not to, and eventually she relented. Emily, I'm sorry. After everything you've been through, I'm only just beginning to understand how awful he is. It's okay, Cindy, I replied. Thank you for the soup you brought. Don't thank me again or I'll get upset, she said, smiling softly. During my hospital stay, Cindy stayed by my side the entire time, caring for me without complaint. Apart from her, no one else supported my decision. I felt incredibly weak from the surgery and fell asleep shortly after chatting with her. When I woke up, Cindy handed me my phone. Alex called multiple times, she said, her expression unreadable. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, Cindy couldn't resist answering one of Alex's calls and gave him a harsh scolding. He remained silent, letting me continue shouting through the phone, only ending the call when I finally stopped. You won't blame me for that, right? She asked. I shook my head, smiling faintly. Noticing my low spirits, Cindy tried to cheer me up by sharing funny stories to lift my mood. My thoughts were becoming clearer. Cindy, can you help me send the medical records, ultrasound results, and hospital bills to Alex's office? I asked. She nodded and added, Emily, we should also remind other women about this jerk. I'll make extra copies so everyone at his company gets one. I agreed. Cindy worried they might ignore the package if mailed, so she decided to deliver it personally while Alex was away from work. Word spread that this incident left Alex too humiliated to show up at the office for an entire week, and he was even hospitalized for 3 days. Once discharged, Alex went straight to Cindy's house looking for me. She refused to let him in, and I had no interest in seeing him either. Around noon, while I was taking out the trash, Alex suddenly appeared before me. Startled, I instinctively stepped back, half expecting him to lash out. But instead, his voice was filled with frustration. Emily, do you really hate me so much? Would you rather hurt yourself than have a child with me? What did the baby do wrong? How could you go through with the surgery without my consent? Looking at the broken man before me, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. My voice calm, I replied, Our marriage is over. I have the right to choose a proper father for my child, and you're not fit for that role. To my surprise, he didn't argue. He just stood there, dazed, his eyes welling with unshed tears. As I gazed at him, memories from last winter surfaced. Emily, will you give me a child? Would you prefer a boy or a girl? He had asked back then. At the time, Alex was widely praised as a caring husband. He would take me on walks after dinner every evening, even giving up smoking and drinking for my sake. Every night before bed, he would help me soak my feet and massage them gently. He insisted on washing and drying my hair, continuing this routine for an entire year. To prepare for a baby, he had gone above and beyond, decorating 2 children's rooms at home, one for a boy and another for a girl. He even selected a luxury maternity center and top-tier postpartum care services in Jiangcheng, complete with skincare products and designer makeup. Seeing his devotion, I often told him not to rush, as there was still time. Yet he remained determined, saying, You've done so much to prepare for this. I just want you to be comfortable, and I'll make sure you're happy for the rest of your life. We once promised to stay together forever, but that vow turned out to be temporary. Maybe everything changed the moment Sophia reappeared. Like the moon outshining the stars, she was his focus, while I was just one of the many stars fading into the background. Realizing this, my mind cleared. We need to find a time to finalize our divorce, I said. Alex, a respected figure in the corporate world, unexpectedly showed rare panic. His calm facade crumbled and his voice trembled. Emily, do you really want to leave me that badly? We stared at each other, locked in a silent battle of wills, neither wanting to be the first to break the silence. In the end, I remained silent, and a flicker of pain crossed his eyes. Did you never love me? How can you mention divorce so easily? He whispered, trying to mask his pain with a forced smile. but tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. I stared back, my heart calm and steady. The things I had discarded would never be picked up again. Glancing at the shattered items in the trash bin, I couldn't help but sneer silently. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, helpless in the cold breeze. I sent Alex multiple messages, urging him to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize the divorce. But he ignored every single one. Left with no choice, I hired a lawyer to personally deliver the divorce agreement. To my surprise, as soon as Alex received it, he called me. His voice sounded oddly affectionate. "Honey, I miss you so much." Stunned, I paused before replying, "Alex, you got my divorce agreement, didn't you?" There was a moment of hesitation before he replied, "No, I haven't received it." Frustrated, I said, "The lawyer told me he handed it directly to you and even sent me a photo as proof." After a brief silence, Alex corrected himself. "Oh, I misspoke. Yes, I did receive it. When do you want me to sign it?" "That depends on how soon you plan to stop stalling," I replied coldly. I had expected to hear more excuses, but instead, his voice softened further. "Are you really going to leave me?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Alex, can you stop playing games and just be straightforward for once?" Apparently, my words struck a nerve. He let out a bitter snort, his tone suddenly turning cold again. "Fine. I'll sign it," he said abruptly, before hanging up the phone. Days passed, yet Alex still hadn't returned the signed divorce papers. On the other hand, Sophia bombards me with messages every single day, ever since she first contacted me. She floods my inbox with texts and emails, repeatedly urging me to leave Alex. Today, she started again. "Emily, how can you be so shameless? Why do you keep clinging to Alex?" Yet, as I read her words, they didn't upset me at all. Life can be monotonous, and honestly, it felt nice to have someone to vent my frustrations on. "Don't you have anything better to do than obsess over a man?" I replied. "I sent Alex the divorce papers ages ago, but he refuses to sign them." "Stop bothering me," Alex's side chick. She seemed unable to believe it, insisting Alex adored her and treated her exceptionally well. Alex fell in love with me the moment we met. We were together for 3 years during university. He picked me up from the dorm every morning for class and walked me back afterward. We never argued, and all the girls in our class envied me. His friends knew me well too, often buying me gifts I wanted. Even after I graduated, while he worked every day, he didn't want me to take a job. He'd squeeze toothpaste for me in the morning, make my lunch at noon, wash my hair and feet at night, and tell me stories until I fell asleep. On my 20th birthday, he even publicly proposed, declaring in front of everyone that he wanted to marry me. He even named his startup after me, claiming he wanted the whole world to know I was his one true love. If my mother hadn't objected, forcing me to break up with him, I would have married him long ago. There would have been no place for you. He doesn't love you, so why won't you let go? Her story sounded touching, but it didn't affect me. I didn't feel sad, just pity. She probably didn't realize that I'd experienced all these gestures from Alex as well, and even more. If he hadn't shown me such overwhelming love back then, I wouldn't have chosen to marry him in the first place. I opened my message app and typed a brief response. "Got it. Wishing you both happiness. I'm going to find him now to get his signature." No sooner had I sent the message than Sophia called me directly. "You can call him, but I won't let you see him in person. Don't even think about meeting him behind my back." I responded calmly, "I'm not a homewrecker and I don't chase after men. If he refuses to sign and you keep pushing me, how do you expect to marry him?" "He wouldn't refuse," she retorted. "I asked him myself. He said he never even saw your divorce papers." "Oh, really? Then let me show you something." I sent her a video clearly displaying the divorce agreement with Alex's name on it. "See? Your Alex is lying. If he really loves you, why won't he sign? If he's so devoted, why hasn't he divorced me and married you yet?" After I sent the messages, Sophia went silent. I realized then that life was so much more than just love. I decided it was time to return to my career, focus on self-growth, and reclaim my independence. A few days later, I finally mustered the courage to message my former boss, asking if I could return to my job at the hotel. To my surprise, he agreed immediately. When I arrived, my colleagues were shocked. "Emily, you're back? I thought your husband wanted you to be a stay-at-home wife." I offered a polite smile and replied, "I'm getting divorced." "Really? But your husband seems so devoted to you. What happened?" My colleagues seemed curious, but noticed I wasn't in the mood to explain and didn't press the matter further. Staying true to one's original intentions is essential to achieving personal goals. Some experiences are difficult to recall, but they shouldn't be forgotten. Moving forward, I promised myself to prioritize self-love and stop depending on others for happiness. During afternoon tea, a colleague invited me to the rooftop for coffee. As I reached the rooftop, another coworker suddenly pointed down and exclaimed, "Emily, isn't that your husband down there? Did he come to pick you up from work?" Looking down, I spotted Alex standing motionless, as though he were trying to hide something. In the past, I would have run down eagerly and embraced him, but now he felt like a stranger. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of him, and sent it directly to Sophia. I knew she would call him the moment she saw it. Sure enough, I watched as Alex pulled out his phone. He seemed tense as he answered, and although I couldn't hear their conversation, his crossed arms and defensive posture suggested they were arguing. Perhaps sensing my gaze, Alex looked up. Our eyes met, and he slowly lowered his phone, completely ignoring the woman still speaking on the other end. His expression was unreadable, but it seemed like he wanted to say something. In response, I simply gave him a thumbs up before returning to the office. 30 minutes later, I received a message from Sophia. "He was just dining at your hotel. Don't overthink things. Besides, he will always be there when I need him." Attached was a picture of Alex sitting at the bar, a drink in hand. His face wasn't clear, but the sight of him drinking reminded me of the past. When we had first started dating, Alex would drink regularly due to work events. But when I started preparing for pregnancy, he stopped completely. At his most important corporate celebration, he had even declined champagne, sipping only water all night. Whenever Alex meets someone, he always mentions that he's trying to conceive and therefore avoids alcohol. So when I saw that picture of him drinking, I couldn't help but wonder, what exactly does this prove? My response left Sophia speechless. 3 days later, Alex's company hosted a party, and he brought Sophia along. She immediately tried to flaunt her presence by showing off in front of me. "Did you see the group photo? Alex took me to his company party today, so you should give up hope already." "Congratulations, but my heart isn't with him anymore," I replied without hesitation. I thought back to a difficult period when Alex's company had almost gone under financially. It was me who used my mother's pension savings to help him through the crisis. During that time, he depended heavily on me and took me everywhere he went. We would stroll through malls, talking and laughing, painting the picture of a loving couple in the public eye. His consistent displays of affection made him seem like the perfect husband. I had even helped bring in several investors, which boosted the company's stock prices significantly. That night, after a few drinks, someone sent me several screenshots. The first was a picture of Alex and Sophia together. The second showed them kissing in a hallway. The third was of Sophia sitting comfortably on his lap. At that moment, I realized I was in the middle of a divorce process with Alex. Yet, seeing these intimate images didn't hurt. I found myself smiling instead. Close to midnight, as I was about to set my phone aside, it vibrated once more with another message from Sophia. The sight made me feel sick, and I rushed to the bathroom. She was desperate to prove Alex's love for her. "Now you understand how much he loves me, right? The body never lies." I stared at the screen, unable to suppress a laugh. "People can be used. How can you be sure the person sleeping next to you is really Alex?" My words clearly got under her skin. Within moments, she responded with a video. Alex lying in nothing but his underwear, followed by clips of them exchanging flirtatious remarks and engaging in intimate conversations in bed. I never imagined that a few sarcastic comments would be enough to make her send me undeniable proof of Alex's infidelity. Without wasting time, I printed 3 copies of the images. One for Alex and Sophia, one for my lawyer, and one for my mother. I refused to bear the weight of this betrayal alone. I then asked my attorney to file a lawsuit against Alex for his unfaithfulness during our marriage, demanding that he leave the marriage with nothing. A month later, the court officially accepted the case. Upon receiving the legal notice, Alex called me immediately. "I'm not against the divorce," he said, "but we've lived together for 4 years. Why does this have to be so ugly? Now you're worried about the consequences? Why didn't you think about that before? How do you want to settle this? If we divorce, you'll walk away empty-handed." He continued, "Why are you being so heartless? The house, car, and savings are all yours. The company, however, is mine. You can keep working there, but the shares must return to me." His voice was calm but laced with subtle threats, the kind that made my skin crawl. Before I could respond, he had already hung up. At the company's election meeting, I appointed David, who received the highest number of votes, as the new general manager, demoting Alex to vice president. I took on the role of overseeing the company's daily operations, working during the day while David reported to me in the evenings. If Alex ever failed to meet expectations, I had the authority to remove him from the company entirely. Perhaps aware of his vulnerable position, Alex began treating me with exaggerated politeness at work, offering tea, water, and constantly acting deferential. Yet Sophia wouldn't stop messaging me. I deliberately arrived late to one meeting where she confronted me. Emily, what gives you the right to take Alex's things? You've done nothing for him, and even Alex hasn't said a word against me. I retorted, I've been divorced from Alex for a month already, yet he still hasn't married you. Doesn't that tell you enough about how he feels? Furious, she tried to splash water on me, but I swiftly grabbed the cup, spilling it back onto her. The water washed away her foundation, leaving her looking ridiculous. Still, she forced a sinister smile. And that money was nothing but our pity for you and your unborn child. I reacted instantly, slapping her hard across the face. She gasped, outraged. What gives you the right to hit me? You have no right to speak about my child, I hissed. Don't message me again, or I'll expose you as the mistress you are. After storming out of the cafe, I headed straight to Cindy's house. She had prepared drinks and cooked a meal for us. Over dinner, we exchanged gossip, laughing and chatting to lighten the mood. After a few drinks, however, Cindy suddenly brought up Alex. Do you know he called me a few days ago, she said. I listened quietly as she continued. Alex told me, Cindy, I know I've made mistakes. Over the years, Emily has become the most important person in my life. Maybe my feelings for Sophia were just leftover regrets from youth, and I let those regrets consume me. I don't have much to offer her now, just the money. Even if she hadn't taken me to court, I would have ended up with nothing. I know I hurt her deeply, and I won't disturb her life anymore. I trust you'll take care of her. For a brief moment, I felt moved. It seemed like he was still the same Alex who had once loved me, and I was still the gentle, caring Emily from before. I understood, however, that looking back often stirs regret. People suffer more from dwelling on the past and fearing the future rather than embracing the present. Cindy, slightly tipsy, ended up ranting about Alex as though venting on my behalf. Loving someone is easy, but staying committed to that love is hard. Alex failed you, and you deserve better. This delayed guilt doesn't mean anything anymore. She was right. I didn't need Alex's late apologies. Moving forward, I wanted to live beautifully on my own terms. In the end, Alex never married Sophia. Perhaps that drunken night finally made him realize something. Cindy later remarked, Sophia is too clingy. She demands constant attention from Alex. Even the smallest things turn into endless arguments. He just couldn't tolerate her anymore. Their relationship ended on a sour note. I realized then that love, when twisted by obsession, could transform even the liveliest person into someone insecure and suspicious. But I didn't want that for myself anymore. Alex was now pursuing his own dreams, and I was determined to become the best version of myself too.